Hello, you're watching Anderson Community Television. I'm your host, Kyle Densler, for this December edition of Anderson Speaks. And our first guest this month is a very special friend of the show, Miss Susan Parker. How you doing, Susan?
I'm doing really well. Great to be here.
I feel like we almost have our own show together.
Well, we do, and we really should. Yeah, maybe we should start our own show.
Here's what I love about your shows is that I learn a ton, and I get to let you just educate and share. So,
thank you.
What do you want to talk about this time?
Well, I want to talk about, of course, staying healthy in general. And, I'm the owner of Susan's Natural World, and we're your friendly neighborhood health food store here in Anderson Township. But as we head into seasonal things, this is December, so it's winter time, people are getting colds and flus, we're preparing for holidays, so just brought some suggestions for staying healthy over these trying times, and healthy and happy and clean. And so I of course, brought my little basket of goodies and thought we could do, a little bit of talking about the types of things that'll keep us mentally and physically strong and vital so that we can stay happier and calmer as we go through stressful times.
I like the stuff you hit on because it's not just, we have various times throughout the year where, holidays or other things, and we just we go crazy with our diets and we go crazy with our schedules. This is definitely one of those, talked about just because of the colder weather, but also with as the seasons change and we fall back, it's the seasonal issues, people low energy and low focus. I know that affects me, so I'm sure you've got a lot of stuff that can help with
and then,
all that.
We get into colds and flus and scary viruses that we're hearing about, and I don't, want to act like I know quite what to do about any of that, but, I used to say to my children that where we live at the end of our road, we take our garbage cans down to the end of the road. And I would give them the example about keeping your body clean and healthy, and that with the garbage cans. And I would say you could have a row of garbage cans filled with garbage. And so, rodents, vermin of any kind, of course will get into that garbage, and they'll find all kinds of things to eat and thrive on. But you could put a brand new garbage can or a clean garbage can down there next to all the other garbage, and maybe they would crawl into that garbage can, but they won't stay because there's nothing to eat there. So I would say to my children, you need to be a clean garbage can. But we need our bodies to be as clean and healthy and non-toxic as possible so that we don't just have a breeding ground for colds, flus, viruses, and any other thing that might be coming our way. So whether it's holiday time or whatever, there's always going to be stressful periods. But as we are going into seasonal time, some of the things I wanted to mention, first of all, is if you're out and in your car, wherever you go in the world, if you're traveling, have water with you at all times. So many of us are not hydrated enough, and that's why maybe we're constipated, our digestion isn't efficient, we bloat. It's amazing what just good old water and nothing but will do so much for your body. And people want to think if they're not drinking sodas or they're not drinking something like that, that there's nothing else to drink. So I would say you want your good clean water at all times, and if keep it in your car, keep a little one in your bag if it's not too heavy. But first, want to start with water and hydrating ourselves.
There's a tip you gave probably a year or two ago that I've been sticking to is one, I always try to focus on drinking a certain amount of water, the same amount of water per day.
Yes.
Sometimes I miss that, but when I stick to it, I notice better energy levels, better focus. It's just, I feel cleaner.
Right.
But the specific tip you gave that I hold to is if I do drink anything that's not water, whether it's every so often it might be a diet soda, or if it's milk, or I remember your example was wine.
Wine or beer. Yeah.
However much you drink, on top of that, drink that much water to help your body flush that out.
I'm happy you remember that. Whatever you drink that isn't water, replace it with a glass of water. So that's really, and then another tip is that I like to tell people, weigh yourself and then divide your body weight in half and drink that many ounces of water a day, because my body won't require the volume of water that yours does. You're a bigger person than I am. So it used to be everybody had to drink 8-ounce glasses of water a day. Some people will need more, and maybe some people won't need that much. So that's really good to know. But water is going to be the thing to hydrate us. And we see so many people with digestive disorders and having trouble getting their bowels moving, and that's the first thing I go, are you drinking enough water? They go, oh, probably not. And you need healthy fat also to just keep your body clean, healthy, and lubricated. So always starting off with water. But I also wanted to mention that sometimes, no matter what, we find ourselves out in the world, we're busy, and then we're starving, and we make a wrong decision because we're starving. So I think it's also, with your water, keep a protein-rich snack in your car or in your purse or pocketbook. So you're shopping and you're starving and you're smelling Cinnabons, and they smell delicious. If you had your good protein that you could, and there are some that just taste delicious. So you have your bar. This is what's called a Kind bar. I really like these.
I'm a big fan of
Really,
those.
and they're nuts and fruits and really good. This one's called a Quest bar, and this is a really delicious gluten-free, but 20 grams of protein in this bar. So just even for me, a third of it is enough to sort of balance any sugars, control any cravings, so then I can make a better decision. Not that you would never not have a Cinnabon, but sometimes people just get trapped into making wrong decisions because they haven't provided themselves. So if you're flying on a plane, make sure you have some water with you or a good bar in your purse also, because that's going to be really very, very
I
important.
know from my experience, it's always funny after I've had a kind of smaller amount of food, which in my mind might mean smaller for a meal, and then an hour later I have kind of like this surge of energy. And I'm like, where's that coming from? Then I realize, oh, I didn't go eat an entire burrito from Chipotle in one sitting,
Right.
or I didn't buy 3 things off the Wendy's value menu. Maybe it was just one, or maybe it's just sometimes it's just having little things like that, or just smaller portions, and your body's actually able to fuel itself instead of wearing itself down trying to digest everything.
Because it can use it efficiently, and that's where
Yes.
Dr. Oz a lot of times would say, have a little handful of nuts about a half an hour before your dinner or something. That'll satisfy your craving, so then you'll make better choices at mealtime. So yeah, and if we overeat, well, a lot of times we think that maybe 4 smaller meals a day might be better for balancing blood sugar and supporting digestion and elimination than 2 or 3 great big meals, because you're right, those fatigue you. And then very often when you overeat like that, an hour later, the blood sugar is going to spike and you will be hungry again. So smaller meals, but make them count. Good protein is very, very important. And then, like a hard-boiled egg. It's a wonderful snack. Hard-boiled egg and a couple apple slices, or some dried apricots, something like that. That's a really nice meal and can get you through trying times. So protein is very, very important, but not overloading our bodies with any foods are going to be a good idea. And particularly, we always talk about this, the processed foods, the processed carbohydrates, and all the added sugars. They really, really are not only making us heavy, making us slow, and making us sad.
Yeah.
It really does. So very important, clean water and a protein-rich snack so that you just are not thrown victim to going out and making bad choices. Also wanted to talk about, it's very important, we all know we need to be very clean, and we're learning more and more and more about protecting our own immune system. So washing your hands as often as possible. Nothing better than good old soap and water. But I do have some nice hand sanitizers that are good sizes that you can keep in your bag, some wipes. I like this brand, it's called Clean Well. It doesn't have any alcohol, but it also does not have something that's in a lot of these hand sanitizers and sanitize. It's called triclosan. Check it out online. There's a lot of suspicion that it gets into our bodies and maybe it isn't a good thing. There's even more suspicion that it's not good for our environment. It doesn't break down efficiently. I'm not a scientist, so don't take my word for it, but this is why there's products like this Clean Well, because use something that's going to be healthful for you and healthful for the environment. I have a relative who is a water engineer in South Florida, and he's the one who first mentioned to me that they're seeing signs that this triclosan is not breaking down environmentally like we think it should be. So read your label when you're buying things. Many people didn't want the ones with alcohol because certainly that can dry your hands out. But this line is called Clean Well. I think it's everywhere. But look at what you're going to use and get the healthiest version of that. Sometimes we as a society head off in a direction to do something that we think is a good thing, and then later we go, oh, maybe that wasn't a good idea. So what we're learning is that particular ingredient, don't take my word for it, I'm not a scientist, I have no proof, I just know there's suspicion. So if I ever hear something that might not be a good idea, I'll want to find the one that is going to be the good idea. So clean hand sanitizers, and that's where taking your own pen with you when, if you have to, except, you know, a lot of times if you're using a credit card, they've got that pen sort of already there. So have tissues in your hand, use your hand sanitizers. We truly must stay as clean and healthy as possible as more and more things unfold and diseases we don't know anything about might be coming into our world. So keep your hands really clean. I always, no matter what you're doing in life, breathe. You know, we scurry around and then we got our list and we're all busy. We stop to do cleansing breaths. It's really amazing what a little bit of clean water and 2 or 3 just cleansing breaths in a row and just relaxing, it just can energize you so thoroughly. So remember to stop and breathe. That's going to be very important.
I was at a seminar recently that was about brain development, and it was about emotional intelligence and things. But this woman she was a Marine with experience in some neuroscience stuff, and she discussed the importance of oxygen in our bodies. Yeah. And I thought this was funny. She had us do a test, and I've educated myself on this. I've had issues, so and I also was classically trained to sing, so I know how to breathe. But it's amazing how many people don't. And she just had folks sit up straight and breathe so that their stomachs came out like a bellow, and you saw people's head getting woozy just from that, because it was just such an inundation out of nowhere of oxygen, because we're all sitting like this, and we're at work, and we're just stuck, you know, and we need to get out and give ourselves some room and just breathe.
Yeah, we need to, because a lot of people are just breathing very shallow. And for many years, I always like to do a deep breath. You would suck in, but no, you fill up and then breathe out, and it's very, very healing and very important. And oxygen, of course, is so important for everything. That's why we need to eat our green leafy vegetables also. They're a source of oxygen in the body, and balance the acids, which we talk about a lot, keeping yourself from being too overly acidic so that you have inflammation and pain and those sort of things. So allowing the time to breathe. And we always talk about that it's things that are always going to be good ideas. So as we're going into December, maybe we'll be eating more cookies, maybe we'll be eating more of the foods that we don't normally eat, maybe we'll just be eating more of everything, no matter what it is. Maybe it's more stuff we've been eating
since Halloween.
It starts with Halloween and then we go into Thanksgiving. So we very often talk about the power of digestive enzymes. So real natural raw foods come with enzymes in them, but we're not eating enough raw foods, and maybe we're not chewing even the good raw foods thoroughly enough. You know, we were told to chew your food 30 times before you swallowed it. You have an enzyme in your mouth that can turn the most acidic food into a more alkaline one if you just chew it thoroughly enough. So chew your food properly. I always say, you know, you can have a little water or a little whatever you like to drink, not soda. I don't think soda ever goes with a real meal. But you don't want to take a bite of your food and a swig of whatever you're drinking, because then you're diluting your own digestive enzymes. So sipping some water, some wine, you know, if you want to have a little milk or something, but little sips of that so that you're using your own digestive enzymes to digest your food and not diluting them. You know, in America, not to pick on people, but they take a big bite of their Big Mac and then wash it down with their 44-ounce guzzler soda. It's not going to be good. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to digest your food properly and then eliminate it. So really eating and digesting. So you can eat foods like apples, yogurt, there's peppermint teas, there's pineapple, there's so many good foods. Papaya is a wonderful one that are naturally going to be good for your digestion. So serving those foods at mealtime will be very helpful. But there are many.
Let me ask you this about liquids in food. You talked about like a handful of nuts, maybe a half hour before.
Right.
I've also read, you know, drinking some water before you go eat can help.
Yeah.
You kind of like the whole don't swim after you eat. How long do you say to drink before you eat so that you're not diluting your own stomach acids and such?
Well, and I would think that, say, if you had a handful of nuts, like half an hour, 45 minutes, and you wanted to sip an ounce or two of water, because you want to get your digestive enzymes flowing, but you don't want to dilute them too much because you need them to work to break down the proteins and whatever else you're going to be eating. So, you know, just not to, you know, to just sip. And then you wouldn't even want to eat too much, you know, just enough. You know, the first sign of digestion, I think it's so interesting, is when you smell the food. So the odor of the food, you smell it, your enzymes start going, okay, we're going to eat. So you don't want to, you know, you want that activity to continue for you. So you would just want to have a little bit before you go. So I would say about maybe no more than 2 or 4 ounces of water, maybe a half an hour ahead of time. So
And once you're all done?
Done, then maybe, you know, then maybe about half an hour or an hour after dinner to, you know, have more water or something like that would be really good. But there's a lot of good enzyme products that are out there that are going to assist with naturally digestive enzymes. Protease is how we digest protein. Amylase is how we digest carbohydrates, and lipase is how we digest fats. So there are foods that can help with that. But there are wonderful enzyme products, and I will tell you a whole lot of doctors are saying, go up there and tell Susan you need a digestive enzyme. Doctors that are, because all this acid going up, down, and all these proton pump inhibitor drugs, like Prilosec is one of them, they're fine temporarily, but people are living on them. You need your stomach acid, and when you drive your stomach acid out of your stomach, because you're having acid there, it's people come in and they go, Susan, my tongue is on fire, or my head is burning, or my feet are burning. And I go, are you on one of those proton pump and inhibitor drugs? And if they are, you know, if you read the label, it says you can use it for about 2 weeks. People are like living on those drugs and then thinking they can eat whatever they want. There's that guy on television, that hillbilly guy, and God bless him, he's funny. But he acts like he takes this and now he's going to eat his chili dogs. And, you know, that's a rob Peter to pay Paul. It's going to catch up with you.
Exactly.
So now
if
and
something
then,
is giving us heartburn or giving us reflux, you know, we want to deal with some of those symptoms, but if you don't address the root cause, you're always going to have issues.
Right. When I give talks to people, I go, if you were going to build a lake in your yard, first we'd dig the hole, then we'd put water. But until you tested the pH of that water, no plants, no fish, nothing could thrive. We are a pH system. We are acid and alkaline, positive, negative, however you want to go it. We need to be, most people think you need to be slightly more alkaline than acidic in your body to be healthier overall. So, but you know, guess what? Most Americans are overly acidic. The sodas alone are nothing but acid. And then there's the sugars and the fried food and the processed food.
That's a whole conversation on its own, just discussing the ramifications or the things that happen because of that acidic state.
Absolutely. I mean, lots of things. All disease, what we realize is all diseases are created by inflammation, and inflammation is fire inside your body. So something's going on, that's where people, I go, you got to keep that food journal, and you got to be honest about what you're doing. It's for yourself. And so then that's where people get those litmus papers where you can, pee or put it on your saliva to tell what your pH is. That's where, if you're testing more acidic, the #1 alkalizing food is a cucumber. Cool as a cucumber. Doesn't it make sense? And that's what's so interesting. These little expressions that have come throughout the ages, you know, she's as cool as a cucumber, or rosemary for remembrance. I love those little things because what I know is, wow, that was so true. So cucumbers, all green leafy, spinach, green leafy things are going to alkalize your body better than anything. So you test, and then you drink your water. There are drops that you can add to your water to help you become a little more alkaline. In an alkaline environment, many people believe that diseases such as cancer are going to have trouble surviving and thriving. So we need to be more alkaline than acidic, but we mainly need to seek a balance in our life, like everything. You're out of balance and something's going to go wrong. So there's a lot of great products out there that are really going to assist and be helpful. They're not going to be shutting down your body. They're going to be working with your body to assist it. So there's products that have digestive enzymes, and this one has digestive enzymes and probiotics. This is what's called a probiotic, and we're hearing more and more about that. Probiotics are friendly bacteria that we are born with billions of them. So throughout our lives, depending on what we do and what we eat, but particularly antibiotics, go in to kill a bad bacteria, but they kill out all your friendly bacteria. So that's why after we've been on an antibiotic for a while, your stomach would hurt, your bowels may either be not working or working too much. You know, we just feel bad. So that's where throughout the ages in cultures that would make like really good healthy yogurts, and we have to be label readers in America, because a lot of the yogurt is not, you know, what it should be.
Right.
But cultures that eat like good healthy yogurt or drink their kefir, the Koreans would eat kimchi, the Germans would eat their sauerkraut.
Yeah,
So those are foods that are natural probiotic foods, and getting those into your diet can be really, really important. But taking a probiotic supplement can be very helpful. I take one every single day. It's good for your digestion, your elimination, and your whole immune system. And you know, there's expressions, everything comes through our gut. We think through our gut, gut, you know, your gut reaction. You got to support a healthy gut, and that's what a probiotic will do. We also need to factor in that the animals that people are eating are being fed tons of antibiotics. So already, even if you think you're not taking antibiotics, if you're not eating grass-fed, organic, clean meat, you're probably getting antibiotic there. So all different forms. So if you can eat your good probiotics, that's great. But there's a lot of good supplements, and for the kids too. You know, kids in America, they're landing with the chicken nuggets and the mac and cheese, and you know, they need more than that. But you know, getting a probiotic in, or making sure that you're getting a good healthy yogurt and making them a little smoothie in the morning or something like that, or adding yogurt, making dips out of yogurt or something like that would be helpful. But a probiotic and a digestive enzyme, we truly feel can go so far to prevent or heal many diseases that go on because it's imbalance, it's too much acid, it's a lot of that. So that's what some of these things are. Then rest. So important to rest, and we don't rest. You know, you need sleep, and they say every hour of sleep you get before midnight is like you slept 2 hours after midnight. So getting to bed by around 10 or 9 is a really good idea. You're going to be suffering. You have your baby, so you won't be getting quite as much sleep as you need for a little while. But
Yeah,
be sure you get your rest.
I tell the folks at home, if I look like I'm in my own world for a little bit, I am listening. But we just brought a brand new baby home. It's our third. We just had a brand new baby home, and trust me, I understand the value of sleep. And I don't ever want to pontificate about things I don't know about. But you know, I've been in the retail business before, and I was educated a lot on sleep and mattresses.
Yeah.
And I just want, real quick, I want you all to consider your mattress one of your #1 investments that you will ever make. If you're spending $500 on a mattress for you to sleep in every night, you're not buying the right mattress. I mean, it needs to be, we spend a third of our life on these things.
Yeah.
And the sleep that we get, the quality of sleep we get while we're on it can be like one of the biggest factors over what our overall health is.
Absolutely, and it's very, very important. And I think sometimes we think we're so busy and we shortchange the value of sleep, even for weight control. You know, people who sleep more, because your growth hormone gets in and starts to work when you're sleeping. And so that good level of your growth hormone, which tries to balance and heal and repair. So you're going to be healthier if you can get a good quality of sleep overall. So be sure to stop and rest. Be sure to stop, and even if you're not going to bed, get off of your feet, put your feet up for a little while, do your deep breathing, and it's going to be very, very important to take such good care of ourselves. So getting your rest. I always love to talk about B vitamins. B vitamins give us energy. They help us deal with stress. They're robbed by the body when we're under stress. And they're water soluble. So I really think just about everybody would benefit from a good B complex formula. You don't want to go crazy with anything, but you can take B complex safely. Take it with your water. It's going to be water soluble. Your urine will be extra yellow, and it won't mean that you just wasted your vitamin. It will mean that thiamine was yellow, and the riboflavin, you broke it down and your body used it. So if you're feeling weak, stress, anything like that, get a good B complex, and we like that also. And then want to mention about vitamin B12 in particular. Vitamin B12 is the vitality vitamin for vitality of our mind and our body. It's good for detoxifying your liver and your lungs. It's good for nerve endings, and so many people have carpal tunnel syndrome or neuropathy or, you know, tingling this or that. So the thing about vitamin B12, it's very hard to absorb through your stomach, particularly if you're compromised at all. So anybody on those inhibitor drugs won't be absorbing their B12. Even we read people taking an aspirin each day. Maybe you don't absorb your B12 as well through your gut. So swallowing your B complex will be fine, but getting a B12, and they'll say sublingual or a lozenge, that you dissolve it under your tongue, that's going to be the second best way into your bloodstream. And we want our B12. People who, for depression, a lot of people are deficient, and maybe not so deficient to be all the way to anemia, but if you don't have enough B12, it's going to show up. Even people with weight they carry around the belly, it can be, you know, that more B12 could be helpful there, so people use it for weight loss. We do at Susan's Natural World every Saturday morning have a vitamin B12 shot clinic. There's a doctor who comes in the office and injects with the B12, so that's the best way in. All of my reading is you can't overdose on B12. And doctors used to very often give B12 shots. There was a Dr. Aceta on Beachmont Avenue for years. A family doctor, you'd go in and take a number. And we used to kind of chuckle about Dr. Aceta because we said, no matter what's wrong with you, he gives you a shot in a pink pill. Well, he did. He shot you with B12. B12 is naturally pink. But you always felt better because the B12 is for vitality. And many people, their vitality is just zapped because they're so fatigued, they're not sleeping, whatever the reasons is. That maybe they're taking things that inhibit the absorption of the foods that they're even eating. So B vitamins and B12 will be very important and very, very safe. While I'm saying that, let me make my disclaimer. I'm not a doctor or a pharmacist, so if you are on prescription drugs, run it past them. So I saw Susan talking about putting B12 under my tongue. And the doctor might go, well, it won't do you any good, but it can't hurt you, or whatever. But it's worth a try. And, you know, I've been a vegetarian for 38 years now. I'm not a vegan vegetarian. I've always been careful with my B12, so I don't ever think I was deficient. But I get my B12 shots, and I like them very much for lots of reasons. So B complex and B12.
One of the things just happens, Nancy, you mentioned that. I may have to buy like 5 bottles and just, you know, when you talked about the little belly part.
Yeah.
But we only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
So I want you to run through what you can.
Okay, one more thing, really important, vitamin D3. And we're learning more and more and more that that's the vitamin that we get from sunshine.
Yeah.
So, and for many years, and a lot of reasons, we don't want skin cancer and we need to be careful, but when you put on a sunscreen that's higher than an 8, you don't absorb your vitamin D3. And we're finding we need more. It's great for your immune system, it's great for your bones and your joints, and it's great for your mood. The sunshine makes us happier. It might be part of the vitamin D3. So your B vitamins, you're getting your rest, your healthy snack, your water, and your digestive enzymes. And then what I like to say is, remember what the season's about, and when you're tired, stop, pick it back up, and relax and think about what the holidays are really about and enjoy them. Don't be frazzled and think you hate the holidays.
That may be some of the best advice. Thank you,
Ever.
Susan.
You're welcome.
All right, we are done, but we're going to be back with our next guest, so stay where you are. Thank you. Welcome back. We are here with our next guest. He is a first-timer on our program, and I'm very excited to introduce Mr. Chris Cravens. He is the president of Tier 2 LLC. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And Chris, I think you told me before the show you are a resident of Anderson Township.
Correct.
So that's good. We
Yes.
cleared you. You're allowed to talk. But are you originally from this area or from somewhere else?
I'm originally from here. Yeah, I went to Turpin High School, so I've been right down on Clough, grew up there pretty much my whole life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right, homeboy. So you have a history with what's called executive protection.
Correct.
Now tell us a little bit about that and then how you moved from that to where you are right now with Tier 2.
Okay, absolutely. I got into executive protection once I left the Marine Corps, so I did 8 years in the Marine Corps, mainly counterinsurgency operations, but obviously from a 30,000 feet view, it's more of just global security. So it doesn't matter what facet we were really working in it, whether it was close protection or we're worried about an installation or a piece of equipment. In the infantry, that's really what we were focused around, is protecting those assets. So I did just about 8 years there. I moved in with an organization called Gavin DeBecker and Associates. We protected 8 of the 10 of the nation's most prominent families, and there were others. Mainly they were names that we would never recognize, never know, but we're pretty prominent. And then at that point, I worked with NCIS as well. So I did executive protection for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So we made sure that their motorcades, their families, their travels abroad as they visited those, in harm's way, that they were safe during their travels as well. So between the Marine Corps and then, those 2 agencies, I've got about 13, 14 years of experience, mainly in executive protection and protection in general.
Real quick about the families, I think when you say it's probably names people wouldn't know, I think sometimes it surprises people, but there's all kinds of celebrities and people who are wealthy who put themselves out there in the limelight,
Right.
but there's a whole lot more who kind of keep to their own and keep
Right.
their own business, and that's probably who you guys are working with. I
Right.
just think people don't think that there are people out there who kind of stay quiet.
Yeah, definitely, and we had a lot of clients that didn't as well. But the biggest thing that we saw with those clients, it made it a little bit easier for us if they weren't on the red carpet every weekend. It made it much easier, but we still took the same precautions regardless. We would always say that threat was measured equally. Whether it was someone that was constantly on the red carpet or someone that would drive by, you could be at a red light with and have no idea.
Wow, wow. So you have a lot of experience doing this. What was the kind of catalyst to move to where now you're, president of your own business? And I want you to tell us a little more about tell us about what Tier 2 does, so we understand that. But what moved you into that?
I think I got to a point in my career to where it was very repetitive. It was a lot of Groundhog Day. The clients would constantly change, but you're doing the same thing. And I'd work with a lot of great clients. Be able to work at the Joint Chiefs of Staff level, be able to work, with the level of Gavin DeBecker. I had a ton of experience. And I loved working on the ground. I loved being in operations, but I saw that there was really a need in the community for more worry about more threat mitigation, a defensive posture, and I thought this might be a really good opportunity for me to use some of my skills and maybe not translate them into protecting people around Anderson Township, but showing them ways and methods that they could do that on their own.
Awesome.
So we've done that.
Teaching them to fish.
Exactly. Because I think, we worry about maybe only the celebrities needing this type of, defensive posture, and they hire someone else to do it. But I think it's something that everyone should really know. Knowing the basics of, just being able to protect themselves, whether physically, but, even more into that is how to just kind of have a defensive posture to keep things from potentially happening, which I think is the most important aspect.
It's kind of an American thing to be able to kind of take care of yourself and
Right.
to not differentiate between I want to kind of exaggerate here, the kind of royal class, and they need protected, and everyone else is kind of
Right.
we're all on equal footing there.
Yes.
We all need to be able to do that. I like that.
Absolutely.
So you just said, hey, one day I'm start my own business. I'm out of here. Or what led to that? Or do you have any people you're working with, or was it just, hey, I know a bunch of cool people and we're going to do this?
That was true, and that is the case right now. We've got a great group. But no, I was doing some work for Gavin DeBecker up in Chicago, and the wife was still down in Anderson Township in contract, so it was that 5-hour drive back and forth, the monotonous, every weekend, every 2 weeks drive. And I said, how can I solidify what I'm doing, and how can I bring it back here to Anderson Township? And we know there's not a big need for what I was doing out of LA and out of Chicago, here in Cincinnati. So I thought that the training aspect might be a really good approach, and it turned out it was. And we saw that there was a really neat dichotomy between fitness as well, strength conditioning, and when we thought of that more for our law enforcement, but it really kind of turned into being a community-driven thing. So, hey, let's empower people to defend themselves. Let's get them physically there to do it. And we thought that was kind of a neat approach, and we've kind of ingrained those two things and really kind of integrated that model. So we've got a lot of people on both sides of that fence, which is really neat.
So you guys are located up off 125 and 275, right? Kind of
Correct.
behind Lowe's, and you've already hit on this, but if someone walked into your space,
Right.
what are the things that they could engage in? Because you were involved in protection and helping folks out, and now you are training folks who do that.
Absolutely.
But this isn't closed off to just people in that field.
No.
This is open to the public, and what kind of things can they get involved there?
Absolutely. There's a multitude. A lot of what we do is basic strength conditioning, and we had initially seen that, for law enforcement officers and security personnel. But then we had people saying, hey, I want to come in, I want to do this, I like this model, I like this service-based, this is what I worry about, this is how I want to train for it. So it's that constantly overcoming adversity. So literally someone can come in, sit down in a chair, talk to one of our instructors and say, hey, this is what I worry about. These are my weaknesses. How can we build a model around that, build a package around that to get them from 0 to 100 exactly where they want to be. It's very progressive. It's performance-based, so it's not like, well, you just need to take this class and you're good. It's one of those to where these are all pretty perishable skills. So we see a lot of our clients for a long period of time. They keep coming back through the door.
So somewhat personal training, somewhat gym, somewhat...
Correct.
But I don't want to say it's CrossFit, but I know
Right.
that there are CrossFit and there's other kind of trainings that are very specific.
Right.
You guys you're not just coming in, someone's going to just do some heavy lifting and go to a powerlifting meet, unless that's
Right,
what they
no.
say, I just want to
Exactly.
get as strong
That's
as
what
I
they
can.
need. Yeah, if that is, then we'll do that. It all comes down to human performance. So I mean, that's really what we focus on. So we don't fight against the clock. We don't fight against weight. We understand that they're always going to win. We worry about the functionality of the movement and then how it applies to everyday life. And so whether that's someone that sits at a desk for 8 hours a day, or whether that's a tactical officer that's gonna have to make a move on a house at 1 a.m. And we understand that ultimately we're all built the same, and the structural integrity of what we do and our movement patterns that go along with it are really the things that make us kind of prevail in each of those situations.
Now you're using things like body structure, movement patterns. Is part of your philosophy to train people or have people train their bodies to react, kind of almost like a muscle memory thing, to react in certain situations, or just to learn how to handle if certain things come up?
Right. We like it to be kind of global. We like to say, hey, well, if you need to lift something at work, or if you need to go against an aggressor on your way home, like when you're stopped, you say you go to a convenience store, or you're walking to your car, we want you to be able to say, hey, this movement pattern works for whatever we're doing. We want it to be something where you can use those things every day, because if we're using them correctly every day when we really need it in a life or death situation, we want that to click in and say muscle memory, action over reaction. I know how to do this.
Awesome.
And that's our goal.
You've talked about defensive lifestyle. How does a defensive lifestyle differ from someone that just trains or is proficient
Right.
in defensive tactics? Because you talk about the word lifestyle, obviously that sounds a little more encompassing. How is that different?
We see a lot of people that are really either interested and fascinated in a multitude of different defensive tactics, and we know that there's a ton of them out there. It seems like there's a new model, there's new training, each and every day. And with what we do, it's like a lot of things that we do. I believe it's 99% mental. I think if we can keep someone from getting into a threatening situation, we're probably much better off than teaching them how to fight an adversary. Kind of one-on-one. A lot of people they're interested in that, and they come to us all the time. It's like, hey, what happens when I get into this? It's like, well, we don't want you to get into that situation. We want to train the majority of our time trying to keep you out of those situations. So how you can park your vehicle differently, how you can change and vary your routes, how you can do small, minute things in your life to keep something from potentially happening to where you would need this extensive amount of defense training to defend yourself is kind of the approach that we take.
So just in case some folks at home aren't making this connection, you're taking the planning, the mind thought, and the attitudes you had when you were, working, let's say, with a family. So I'm just going to Waltons. You're working with the Walmart family, and you're like, okay, what's their daily routine like? What's their life like? Where are they exposing themselves to something where that's unnecessary? You're helping us kind of ordinary folks who don't have our own giant chain stores do the same thing with their lives. I'm starting to think of people who I work with, people who have had a history of violent people in their past and this and that. I'm sure you get people coming in
Right.
saying, I want to mitigate, I want to minimize these sort of things happening.
Right.
Do you get folks with specific examples like that?
All the time, and I think that's really the scary part about what I do, and that's, I think, why I'm even more passionate about this than when we initially started. The people you run into on a daily basis, and you think, oh, well, it was great to meet that guy this morning, because of a business function or whatever, and then you get a call or an email later that day about this really kind of personal thing that may have happened, or things that are happening actively in their lives that they're worried about that you would never have any idea about. And I think that really kind of solidified that I was doing the right thing, that we're doing this, that people are out there that have this need, and it's not something to where we say, hey, I've got this threat or I've got this worry, where do I go to find the cure? Where do I go to find, what I need to protect myself if this either gets worse or, it eventually happens.
So what is the most common defensive service requested by those that you guys train?
What's huge right now is women's self-defense. That's by far, out of the, and that's kind of on the bottom spectrum of the, the level of intensity of training that we do, but it's definitely one of the busiest. It's kind of twofold. It's either, whether women that recognize that there is a threat or their husbands recognize that there's a threat and they get a hold of us to set up a class. We really like that course. But it's very similar to what we teach a lot of our law enforcement. It's very similar to what we teach a lot of people that have active threats right now. It's mitigating that threat and how they can change and do certain things. And then we throw some techniques in there too that that they can utilize if they are cornered and they do need to get out of a certain situation.
And why is there a difference, or why is there a need for a specific women's self-defense versus maybe a men's sort of course or learning?
Right. Our approach as an instructor is pretty much the only difference, to be quite honest. So, we get stuck around labels, and I've had guys in the women's self-defense say, I've got a ton out of this. And we don't change it a lot for a lot of the other communities. You'll see some of the verbiage change, so it's more so we can get our client to connect more with it. Like, yeah, that's a possibility. That's feasible. I could see that happening to me personally. With the women's self-defense, we focus more on, vulnerable aspects of their life. To where maybe they don't have the physical stature to be able to do certain moves that we may teach in a different men's threat mitigation course. But ultimately, globally, we're looking at a lot of the same course structure and syllabus. We're just changing to fit our client a little better.
Is part of it calling it that just to help say, hey, this is important? Like maybe I don't know if this is true or not, are women maybe not as defense-minded? Because there are some things guys don't think about as much. Is it something that you're just trying to get more women to think about?
Right. It is. And I think the big thing with women that we find, and with anyone who hasn't been in, some type of, attack or altercation, it's to be able to respond immediately and almost aggress someone else. I mean, you're in a fight at that point, and for a lot of people, guys, we've been kind of roughed up in football, and we've come into certain things in our lives where we've had that kind of fight or flight response, and we know how we're going to respond. A lot of women seem not to have that as much as a lot of men do. So we say, hey, we really need to focus on your mindset, because this may be the first time in your life that you've had a physical encounter that you're going to have to, do something to mitigate. And I think that's the really important part, and that's why the women's self-defense is so important, because we're really focused more on your mindset. We're going to give you some great techniques and tactics that work. I can do that in 15 minutes. I would need to focus the majority of my time as an instructor on getting a person's mindset ready to be able to mentally use those techniques physically against someone, because that's a very hard dichotomy. Because for us to say, I understand this technique, I know how it works, that's great, and I get dressed up and I get beat up in the red man suit all day long, and they do a great job. But now if I put this into a real life scenario, are you going to react the same way when you're not around friends, you're in a calm environment, but all of a sudden we start throwing stress inoculation into it, we start losing our fine motor skills, we have auditory exclusion. Are you going to perform just as well in that setting?
I was just going to ask you, how much of it is understanding how our bodies naturally, especially our brains, naturally react like about flight or fright? And then at the same time, you're saying this, I'm thinking of the Denzel Washington movie, Man on Fire, which he was, I think, a private security guy, so it's very much like what you did, but how he used the gunshot for her swimming just to teach her to react in a certain way, so that she didn't just freeze and kind of put herself in harm's way if anything did happen. So, very cool. Speaking of firearms, is that anything that you guys are involved in, any sort of services that you offer? And how does a firearm, if it does, fit into a person's kind of defense plan or as a tool?
Right. It's something we do a lot, and since we've kind of had this fear of the Second Amendment infringement, here the last couple years, a lot of people have been buying firearms in fear they wouldn't be able to, and now we have a bunch of I hate to say uneducated, but that's just kind of what it is. I bought it because I thought I couldn't have it, and now it's at home and I'm not real sure how it operates or how I can use it to my advantage. So we have been extremely busy, with kind of just basic revolver up to semi-automatic, all the way up to, high-powered, rifles. And a lot of that we do see in our law enforcement and security communities. But we do have a lot of people that come through for concealed carry, and they understand, even though it's 12 hours, it's not really focused on how to use it as a tool. We understand how it works safely and lawfully, how to carry it as a citizen, but we don't really get into in that course the scenarios of how would I utilize this tool and should I utilize this tool in a situation that may arise. And I think some of the best concealed carry cases we've seen, someone that recognized there was a threat, but with their level of training, it wasn't time for them to pull their firearm and engage someone. And I think that's the best kind of person we can have, is a cognizant shooter, out there, someone who wants to defend others. So yeah, we do. We have a multitude, of different firearm courses, and we critique a lot of them. We get a lot of people say, hey, I'm just worried about my firearm at home, and if someone breaks in, I only keep it in my car when I'm traveling. So we really get into the nitty-gritty and try to recreate scenarios for them to say, hey, we want to make it as realistic as possible, so if it does happen, you've already kind of processed and built this, cognitively speaking, to say, hey, okay, now I can just piece together, I thought about this mentally, I did it physically, and now it's happening. I can react much better than I could if this is the first time I'm really kind of seeing this information and processing it.
So just I'm going to pick something that you said. So obviously you see individuals or situations where just because you maybe support firearms or help with the concealed carry doesn't mean you have this kind of cowboy attitude about
Correct.
it. There are times where you see it's not appropriate for this person to use it or in this situation because you need to be responsible.
Absolutely.
Very good. I just know I have a lot of family members and friends who have concealed carry, and one of the things that they've been taught and they've kept repeating amongst themselves is basically like, I hope I never have to use it.
Right.
I hope I never have to use it.
Right.
It's there for a reason, but hope I never have to use it. Do you ever get any pushback or I don't want to say negativity or people come in and it's something you start to discuss and they're kind of like, whoa, it's like, how do you handle that? Is it something where
Right.
you want to educate them and say it could be, or do you just kind of step back and say, you know what, think how you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We do get some pushback on it, it being firearms in general, and it's a tool. I mean, I could, I hope that I can train someone to defend themselves with that coffee mug just as well as I could with a firearm. More people tend to lean towards carrying firearms instead of coffee mugs, obviously, so the holsters are a little bit better. But it's just a tool, and like I said, I focus the majority of my time and effort on training someone not to have to use the firearm or coffee mug. So really, if we get down to I want to train with this certain tool, then we're all about training them with it. If firearms aren't your thing, then we'll find another tool, to help you, or maybe no tools whatsoever. Maybe we can make you your own type of weapon if you decide that you don't want to train with a certain object or item, and we're fine with that. Firearms definitely aren't for everyone, and that's good. It's good for people to know that. But we hate to have people that come in that have a stigma about them, because we've turned that around quite a bit and said, wow, this is actually a really, really great tool that keeps distance from my adversary, which is really important. And I could throw the coffee mug so far for me to be able to engage someone at 25 yards and say, hey, that was going to be a threat. We see with a lot of cases in law enforcement that are all over the news, that reaction time as people get closer to us quickly diminishes. So, we understand that distance is safety. That's how we say, we're able to say, okay, if your standoff's this far, you're able to do X, Y, and Z to protect yourself. As people get closer, though, that really gets minimized. So, we understand that, from a protective stature and protective model, that a firearm is nice because we can keep distance from someone that may be a threat.
I know I've seen videos showing, a lot of people think, oh, I have a gun. If someone's 5 feet away from me, I'm fine. And I've seen videos some of them were, it wasn't an actual person attacking someone, but it was actual maybe police officers or people who had concealed carry being brought into a situation not knowing what to expect, and a guy coming at them with a knife from 7 to 10 feet away, and they couldn't do a thing about it. And if they weren't trained to react to that specific situation, they just thought, oh, I can just pull and fire.
Exactly.
They're going to get in trouble.
And not the case. And we have found in a lot of different, especially since we have had the recent, knife engagements with a lot of, citizens, 21 feet. 21 feet is how far out someone can be, and literally someone who's trained may not have time to get accurate shots on target on their threat. And that's, we hear 21 feet, it's like, oh, that's plenty of time, you can, whatever, make yourself a pot of coffee, and it's not the case. It's actually, someone that's moving at full speed. That's a short amount of ground to cover in a pretty quick time.
Yeah, and just to buttress something you said earlier, you're talking about just situations. The folks who I know who have concealed carry actually avoid more situations where they could possibly be used than maybe they would if they didn't have it. I know with some people, especially some of these stereotypical hothead folks who go into situations and they want to kind of try to big up and talk. For those people who have the maturity and the discipline to go through kind of with the concealed carry and to kind of go through with all that, they tend to just be like, you know what, that's not going to be worth it. I'm just going to walk away. And they don't care if someone goes, oh, that guy was just scared. They're just like, no, I wasn't. I just helped you out.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the confidence with that is really important. Someone who, you find that a lot. It's kind of like the sleeper, or the silent person in the crowd is usually the one you have to, the one you should really be worried about. And I think that's the case. And I think we do a lot of training that it's very realistic. It's very scenario based. We use a lot of non-lethal rounds, so we put people in those scenarios to say, well, this is how you said you were going to react, and if we recreate a encounter with someone on the street, or we try to recreate something that's like, oh, this is how I do it. Well, let's see you do it, and we will literally recreate that with our instructors, and we'll put them in the scenario, and 90% of the time, they say, wow, I didn't know stress was going to affect me like that. I didn't know I was going to react like that, and that's what we want, because we don't want the first time that someone's going to run into that, it to be on the street when it matters. If we can recreate that, a scenario or a multitude of scenarios, hundreds of times over, we will do that. So if it does happen on the street, we can say, hey, this isn't for me. I know how I'm going to react in this, and this isn't a situation I need to be in.
And I think you're hitting the next point I want to talk to you about. You're already kind of there, but with your background and experience in law enforcement and military and with the security, how has that helped to mold the courses that you offer? Like what part of that helps set you apart and make what you offer that much more valuable?
About 100%. I'm very, we do teach concealed carry, and the NRA is a great organization, and I teach it, by the NRA syllabus, so someone's able to get an Ohio license legally. But I hate being restricted by different guidelines. I'd like to say my experience overseas, either in Afghanistan or Iraq, or during doing threat mitigation, or doing missions actively for clients. I want to use what I know. I want to say, hey, this is what happened when I was in this particular situation, and this is what I felt worked best. And we constantly go over lessons learned. So if we hear something that happened yesterday in Cincinnati, some type of attack or some type of threat that we didn't know was there, we're building a course for it. We're saying, hey, what do I know from my experiences? What can we talk to about the officers and those that were involved, and how can we create something to keep it from happening again? That's really where we're at. We're very, I'm not going to teach a syllabus. I can guarantee women's self-defense is going to change every day until we stop doing women's self-defense, because we understand that there's new threats, that new things are going to happen. Car door locks are going to change, the way that parking garages are set up. So as those things change in our environment, we're changing our training to make sure that it still fits.
Wow. I just have all kinds of different questions for you. Go back again real quick. Go back for my sake and the viewer's sake. Just if someone were to come in, what's the gamut? What's all the things that they could take advantage of with Tier 2?
Absolutely. We have just kind of a Gen Fit program, which is great for people, just weight loss, strength conditioning. We do some post-injury rehab. Joe Hook is our performance director. He's able to assess someone post-PT and say, hey, let's get this strengthened up the correct way. Let's do it the right way so you can use it as you would like to functionally throughout your life. We move into, at that point, which is where a lot of our clients are hosted, we see some move over on our defense side. So we say, hey, I want to get involved in women's self-defense. I want to get into basic handgun. I don't understand a lot about it. I want to get my concealed carry because there's a lot of other people that do, and they feel more secure. And then we get law enforcement come in, and they'll take advantage of, say, a tactical athlete program, which we really mix the dichotomy of, hey, your movement patterns here in the gym, you need to be very, very similar to what you may use when you're out on the street. So we try to make those connections so their movement patterns are the same. So if they need to pull a firearm, they're very strong upper body, and they're very strong in pushing that platform out so they can utilize it. But it's, like I said, a lot of it is so service-based, it's hard, to say that, well, we've got these 10 core things. We really say, hey, where are you at? What do you need?
It's very specific.
And we build it around,
Awesome.
Which is nice. We really, really enjoy that. And we find some people say, hey, you fit in this category very, very well. And if you feel that your needs aren't being met there, then let's reassess and let's make it more personal. But for exactly what we do on both sides, it's scenario based. If you feel if you're weak here, you may be the only one in Anderson Township that feels weak right there. So we need to focus on you individually and make that happen. But if we say, hey, I just want to lose some weight and I want to get stronger, we've got a core class and group for that.
Now, and we just discussed how it's specific and it's not really cookie cutter, but from what you see, just to kind of give folks at home something to connect with more, from what you see, what is, I don't want to say typical or average, but kind of like the median issues that people come in with, or the median issues where they're lacking in one help with?
Yeah, I would say, if I were to split the company in half and say, hey, one's fitness, one's defense, I would say strength conditioning is the majority of what we see. Hey, I come in, I want to lose weight, I was in shape X, I want to get back there. We try to fit that in the routine, which is, the hardest thing about, I mean, it's if you don't have an hour dedicated to something a day, it's hard to immediately put that in. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
have enough, as we all know, we don't have enough hours in the day as it is. You know, so we try to find the best time to say, hey, this is the best time for you to come in and do that. So strength conditioning for sure. On the other side of the fence, we do a lot of basic courses. You know, a lot of people I think are really interested in, you know, firearms and defense, and, you know, we do kind of an intro to those things, not only to showcase what we have, but for them to kind of get their mind wrapped around, well, how do any of these things really fit into my life? And very rarely do we say, oh, well, you know, nothing here. I'm plenty safe. I'm good. That normally isn't the case. So usually between those two, so usually our Gen Fit program on the fitness side and kind of our just introductory to defense are usually the two biggest ones that we at least can get people into and say, hey, this is a great place to start. And we hope that, you know, from there, with it being performance based, we may have people that stay in both of those areas, you know, for a prolonged amount of time. And if not, we say, hey, you're progressing really well. Let's move you up into advanced handgun one. Let's move you up into personal training because you're really excelling from the group. So
And just to remind people, you guys, I mean, with what you do, you're also training people who have done what
correct.
Who are doing what you've done. So I mean, these are professionals who need this.
Correct.
So that's good to know that you guys have those credentials and the know-how, and that people are coming to you for that.
Yes.
But for anyone who might be concerned, well, I'm going to be in there with people like professionals, that could be
Right.
intimidating. What would you say to them?
Oh, I would say absolutely not. You know, we've got a really neat class. I mean, we've got people in classes from 18 to 68. I mean, you know, it's truly community driven. It really is. You know, and for those that are, you know, extremely advanced, or they're working, they're getting ready to go into military, whatever they are, they're really segregated, doing a lot of more one-on-one.
Okay.
We see a lot of people that, you know, I see each and every day in and out of the shops here in Anderson and that are part of our classes, that are part of our training regimen, that love it. It's a real neat dichotomy. It's a really unique group of people from all walks of life.
Awesome. We are out of time. Real quick, you have a website where folks can go check things out?
We do. Tier2training.com is probably the best way to get a hold of us, or info@tier2training.com. Those are the two. You can get on there and get all our contacts, see the bios of all our instructors and everything we're doing down there.
Awesome. Well, Chris Cravens, President, Tier 2 LLC. Thank you for coming on, sir. It was
Thank
a pleasure.
you for having me.
And if you guys have any questions, go check out his website. And if you don't, hope everything's safe and sound. Stay safe and sound during the holidays. Enjoy the time with your families. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.